Do you think this house will ever be built, Mr. Edwin, sir? Mr. Lang? Your name's Lang, right? Is it pronounced Lang?
In English, yes.
Okay, so the windows that are at the back here, do you have any specifics with regard to the dimensions?
Well, I used the same size for all the small window types throughout the home.
Okay.
So take the size of what you've already used.
Well, do you want to call it, just so that I have something specific and I can readjust the others?
I don't know that I recall the exact dimension of them. Likely something like 3 or 4 foot by 1.5 kind of size.
That sounds fine.
Very
Oh,
tight.
we're 1 foot 5 inches by 3.5 by
1.5 and 4 by 3. Yeah, I mean that's a roughly reasonable dimension.
You said 3.5, 3.5 feet.
Oops,
Oops,
that's
that's
3
equal.
to 4, but I think 4 would be better.
Okay, 4
Having
feet
a look at it.
by 1.5 feet. Done.
What were the dimensions of the ones below?
Well, I can readjust them to that. And then the space in between.
But the ones below might be even more appropriate.
So we will say how many of them? 4. So 1. Oh, did that throw that off? I believe it did. Okay, back. So. Hello?
Did anybody come?
He's here right now. He's listening to you speak.
Hello, Gail.
What? Oh, I'm there. Yeah, I was just wondering if you were there. Back, did he give you a key yet? Duker? Did you give him
Duker.
A tea. A tea.
A tea, a tea.
A tea. There's 3 tea there for you, Edwin.
Oh, I brought a cup of coffee for myself, so we're okay.
Oh my gosh. What kind of coffee do you like? Must be special.
Just as long as it's strong, I don't really mind too
Okay.
much. I like the Starbucks Italian blend. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to do a couple more things. My back feels so bad, I got to come home. So, see you soon.
Okay. See you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. So here we go. We got 4 windows. Not exactly ideally spaced, but they seem kind of somewhat reasonable. Architecture, wall. 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 Exterior glazing. What's this?
We are March 1st today. Wow. Even with our extra leap year day. It means yesterday was a leap year day. So, it's like getting a free day. Bonus day for the year.
Indeed.
And how did you spend your bonus day?
Me? I spend every day in the same way. Every day is exactly the same. Level 2, base offset, 3 feet, 8 inches, no F key lock. Top of the wall is lower than the base of the wall. Base offset, 3 feet, 8 inches.
How have your uploading efforts been doing?
I did a little bit of Twitch streaming earlier today. I did about an hour.
How many hours does a typical popular YouTuber have to spend?
PewDiePie is the most popular YouTuber on Earth, and
Yeah.
he tries to upload every day. So he does like
Video per day.
upload a video per day. Yes. And where did that wall go? That wall that I just drew.
I've heard of this name, PewDiePie. Why is this guy so popular? What value does he provide to people?
He's just a YouTuber.
Just entertainment, I guess, right?
Yeah, he's just a YouTuber. He's just.
I think he's one of those chosen few that's been blessed with massive following. I guess he gives the others hope.
Indeed. Indeed, Rooney, dearly. That worked. Okay. So we're going to now draw some mullions here, here,
It's neat that it shows you what's going through the window as well.
and here. Now I'm going to see if I can select this, copy it, multiple copy from here to here to here. Ah, that worked. Yay. Okay, now the windows and this part of the house. So, let's make this as it is seen. Okay. So essentially, I have to redraw this wall. So this little outcropping starts about here and ends about here, roughly, very roughly. So I'm going to make a cut here. Split that.
received a bunch of voice messages from you last week.
Indeed. Yeah, I tend to be very liberal with the shooting out the voice messages. And all of a sudden, they have a winner.
We were talking about Mr. Bosa.
Dale, yeah. I called him. I recommended a stock. The market's way down. Like the market is in the toilet tank. So I'm like, you know, it's time to buy. It's time to buy stocks. I consider buying stocks. So if you have $10 million, buy a stock.
If you have money, you can make money. Or lose it. Worse yet, borrow it and then lose it.
Well, you can't invest in well, you shouldn't invest in the stock market if you can't afford to hold on to the stock.
It doesn't stop people. But I would agree that stocks have taken a dip. I guess in part due to our Corona friend.
Yeah, that's a major consideration.
And this could be an opportunity for those who have been waiting for a serious buy signal and not just a little blip on the chart. Harkening back to 2008, and before that, the millennial.com bubble.
So,
although if you look at the 5-year trend, we're only reducing back to what it was pre-Trump. Oh, good. You're putting in the foyer notch.
yeah, it's pretty shallow. There we go.
I'm thinking I might want to make it grander than that, but let's start with what I designed. I originally wanted to have like a whole extension whereby you could drive a car underneath you know, a small sheltered archway. However, the terrain of the land doesn't lend itself very well to that with respect to the garage position. You know, like how you have in Grand Manors, you drive in a circle, and that circle goes underneath a front portico entrance of sorts, and then you can drive out of it, so that people getting out of the car are not inundated with rain and what have you. They can get out in the dry, get in the dry, whether it's pouring down or not. Important to have in a rainy city like ours. Those were the thoughts on it, although the implementation doesn't really include that yet. It's more a physical land constraint because there is a significant drop-off as you head west along the property exiting the garage. In fact, that's why I had to move the garage further east to begin with, if you'll see in the model once you look.
Okay, so how does that look? Not too bad. It's easily readjusted. So now we're gonna do.
Oh, it's there. It's a suggestion.
Let's see if you can fit these doors. So window, door, exact doors that we wanted. Yay. Bam.
Double door right there.
Throw them in there.
Adjacent with 2 windows, similar to
2 windows,
the other
3
levels.
windows, or this is another 4 windows here on this wall.
there are. You could even just mirror what's on top.
And so we need a window as such. Imagine actually drawing this. Wouldn't that be something?
I did.
Dude.
With actual pencils
You, sir, are
and
lying.
rulers. I'm kind of an ape man am I.
You are lying, sir.
I should start grunting and chimping out or something.
So, okay. So, this wall right here is a wall. There we go. This is the wall. Edit profile of this wall. Okay. See if I can just straight cop. I can. Constraints. Place this out here. Copy multiple. 1.
There must be a layers concept in Revit, is there? Or I assume you can hide and show various components.
Create similar on flow 1. Kind of. Who's your favorite architect? I probably already asked you that.
Well, I think I'm mostly inspired by Wright's work, but I do
Frank Lloyd Wright never went to university.
I do like BC Binning as well in some parts.
BC Binning. Dude. I'm familiar with it. Okay.
Never went to university. Yeah, I think that's true, isn't it?
Frank Lloyd Wright never had any post-secondary education. He started working in an Arctic's office after he graduated high school, I guess, or like grade school, or maybe didn't even graduate grade school, but he just started working his way into the industry. Same with Philip Johnson, obviously. And
I would assume, yeah, a lot of them. But, of course, that's a different era in time, right, when things were not so well established in industries. Maybe
holy,
it's still possible, do you think? Or do we all need credentials and letters beside our name in order to do anything?
well, I think it's just artificially imposed, right? Like the system's just so based upon specialization, or like tries to be based upon specialization. And then I think everybody's just in a conformity mode where they just conform. I mean, like, it's like conform to authority, or we will execute you. 5, 9, 10, 6 feet. Okay, so we need exactly 5'11".
The thing is, you know, visionaries and true creativity is not interested in conformity. And so one has to provide some leeway between what needs conformance and the creative engine driving
space these out more than 511. So we're going to take these.
That's where I think you could come in and provide some value.
If
you can do all this, you know.
Well,
where are you doing it?
My philosophy on everything, like my philosophy on law, my philosophy on all creative works, is that you just focus on a very technical, very specific aspect of it, and then just believe in yourself, right? Like, I mean, believe in what you're doing. But like the idea that I think it's job security. It's people want to create artificially achieve job security based upon a credential system where it's like kind of like, you know, you surrender to this like arduous process, and then we give you job security based upon that, but it's not really rooted in anything real. It's artificially imposed by like the culture and the society, but it's not like based upon any kind of scientific limitations of the thing. So I'm definitely fighting a difficult battle to try to do things any differently than that. But I believe like I have kind of a point, just because things have changed so drastically because of technology and continue to change so drastically because of technology. It's like, how can you compare the reality that we face via modern digital information systems to what Frank Lloyd Wright dealt with? Like, once I do any given thing on this model, it's extrapolated like informationally infinitely. So it's like if you're drawing on a hard copy, to proliferate the information, you know, you're making calculations as the designer. So you make a calculation, and then you attempt to articulate it in an external way so that somebody else can borrow from the information to actually physically construct the item or the artifice. And then on a computer system, it's like we could be building the same building 50 times over with having one dude doing what I'm doing here on Revit. And it could be, yeah, essentially infinitely extrapolated. So the basic epistemological reality that accompanies any given administrative role, whether it's architect or politician or anything, is just so much more significant. I mean, like but at the same time, because of the proliferation of everybody and everybody's access to the same basic way of things, then you know, it also creates the multitude of other possible considerations, right? So it's like, I just think like it's a confoundment of epistemology and ontology, the connectedness, the informational connectedness, and the efficiency of it. Like ultimately, the efficiency of it is just supreme, right? And like I think we've reached that end state. So who knows what the ultimate implications of that will be for really significant fields of technological development, like biotech, right? Or like genetic research, or nanotechnology, or engineering processes that will usher in agile robotics and stuff like that. It's like all of these things, because of the interconnectedness of things, it should occur exponentially faster, as described by, you know, all of the kind of academic philosophers on like artificial intelligence and stuff like that. Like, what's his name? Ray Kurzweil, or like Nick Bostrom, or Ray Kurzweil, where they have the idea of the singularity. And so, yeah, I think everything is becoming the singularity. Like everything is being reduced to the connected epicenter of communication and connectedness, at the same time as the world is still in complete chaos. Like if you do look at what's actually going on in a physical sense, in a socio-political sense, economic and human dimension of things, it's still completely wrecked. Like, I think statistically, Steven Pinker gave a lecture on TED where you're familiar with Steven Pinker? No. He gave a lecture on TED where he said statistically everything is getting better. Like slowly but surely, we are making progress toward feeding all people and having socioeconomic equilibrium for all people slowly.
I've heard that assertion. Yes.
Yeah, and to me that makes a lot of sense, because I mean inherently, as we improve, I mean without question, there's like improvements, and if you want to reject the evolution of things, the evolution of technology, I think there's like a spiritual reason to do that, right? Like I think there's like maybe God imposes limitations upon us, like, you know, Jesus being crucified is kind of like a metaphysically imposed limitation, right? Where it's like, why is that necessary? Why does Jesus have to be crucified? Like, isn't that like, you know, couldn't we just not do that and just like have like a, you know, just a dude who came and like healed people and then said goodbye and like vanished? He had to be like crucified. So it's like this limitation that's imposed upon reality. You see it from, I think it's an inherent principle of like the fabric of reality, right? Where I see reality as being like a plenum of consciousness, in that it's like a simulation theory, right? Where it's like alpha 0 is generating the model. Let's say reality, like it's just a surface level model. It's like a projection of like, you know, omega consciousness that we evolve into through machines like the Matrix. So we evolve into like Matrix consciousness. The Matrix generates the artificial simulacrum that we're embedded in, and then the mind of the individual is also the product of the same artificiality. So it's like folding alpha 0 upon itself, where you've got a plenum of consciousness. But that's how I see the inherent nature of existence, right? It's an illusion, but that's how I perceive it to be. And then the limitations are what define it, right? Like my physical limitations or my external limitations are what create my identity, essentially, because like I am pressed up against my limitations, whatever they are, economic or something like that. So I materialize out of the metaphysically imposed limitations by God or the Matrix or whatever it is. And then do I have free will? Do I have choice within that? Like the choice of the individual is an illusion because it only exists within that field of limitation. So like, yes, I have choice within a field of limitation, and then that's what defines my choice, right? So it's like, I don't think it's accurate to say that you have free will. I think it's accurate to say that we exist. I'm a conscious entity, I exist, and that's that, right? But like my choice is defined by the limitations that are imposed upon me externally, or that are imposed upon me by the inherent nature of the thing. That's how I see reality. Sorry.
Cut. Okay, that's your video for today. Post it.
No, I can't post that. I will post that. I will post that. I'm editing. The last time that we did it, I took the same video. I didn't get the lighting though, but like I'm gonna try to edit out all the bad stuff, and then I'm just gonna try to splice together all the good stuff in chronological order if possible.
I was referring to what you just were speaking, not drawing.
Dude. But then Edwin as a consciousness, like, he exists independently, right? So, like,
well, I'm a figment of your imagination here. I'm just kind of nudging you along, but it's really you just nudging you along.
Well, like, I relate this, I borrow from the basic principle that you encounter in Islam, right? So it's like, if God exists, and let's say God exists, and it can change any given aspect of the physical universe at any given moment. It's like then we're essentially like we're the embodiment of God in its many forms, right? Which is kind of like a Hindu idea. But okay, so I gotta evenly space these windows. I just think that the Islamic mind, as you know, appreciated through the Islamic architecture that we have the ability to observe, it has good taste and aesthetic. Like I really love the aesthetics that accompany Islamic architecture, right? Like so I would like to borrow a lot from the aesthetic principles that you encounter in Islamic architecture, just because I think it's tasteful. It's like I'm like a functionalist. I would describe myself as like a functionalist utilitarian, right? So, but you know, you borrow influence from. Well, I haven't really done anything yet, but like you know, you anticipate being capable of borrowing influence from various sources. I think the mosques in Medina and Mecca exhibit great aesthetic taste. Like I really think that if you consider what injecting high technology into that equation is going to offer, like if you think about what Mecca and the iPhone can do together, if you're trying to achieve perfection, and I see most of Islamic architecture as being the drive towards some kind of hyper aesthetic perfection,
right? Where everything is moving in like a synchronous order. All human society is organized around this ritual where it's all essentially to serve the aesthetic. It's pretty impressive.
Sounds like confirmation to me.
It's pretty cool. And then, like, yeah, there's moments on that video. There's another video recording by Taiba Sciences where he's walking out onto the sun parasols, like in Medina, and he like walks outside, and everything is like, you know, like perfect. Like it's like a perfect like heavenly paradise where like people are walking around. The sun is just perfect over all of the parasol, or like the umbrellas, or like those big projecting canopies. They're like the artificial extending canopies. And he looks at his watch, and it's like exactly 7 o'clock, right? And it's like totally artificial. It's like, it's just like crazy, man. It's like synchronicity, right? But then I think there's a lot of people that reject it, right? Like they encounter like a state of consciousness where it's like so undeniably, as I'm describing it to be, that it's unsettling, because you can essentially never escape from like the waking state, right? So then it becomes how to organize the waking state, right? Because you're like, you know, if I'm always face to face with God, or some kind of incarnation of God, or some kind of version of God, then it's like, you know, I can never like escape. I'm always stuck in the matrix, right? And then like I think there's a lot of people that reject it and end up going schizoid embolism. You know what I mean? Like in Total Recall. And that's what society deals with, right? Like the Nicholas Cruises and stuff, where the guy's just like splits his wig, essentially. Dude, where am I putting this? Did that work? This is a funny conversation. Oh, did that wall disappear? I destroyed the whole wall. Okay. Control Z, Z.
Life and law.
Shaded. No! I deleted the wall! I went really, really bad. Control Z, 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 Z. Okay, that looks better. Shaded. Ah, we have our wall back. Yay. That worked. I went too far that time. Okay. I'm just gonna
on the state of the world.
Well,
that was another clip right there. You could have just cut. You can take this whole conversation and splice your dissertations.
The crazy ramblings of Dominus Rex Maximus Marcus Aurelius.
Would it be less entertaining than PewDiePie?
I think this is kind of like the balance between the educational materials that are available on YouTube and PewDiePie. I think PewDiePie is like, he's just straight like funny vlog, and I want to hopefully be able to create a platform for higher thought and intelligence, but as well try to make it as entertaining as PewDiePie. That would be the goal, because I think other people have done that. Like there's a couple other people that come to mind, but you know, for socializing and stuff like that, like if I go out on the town and I want to have a good conversation with somebody, I would say like YouTube is the best opportunity to do that, because I can just organize it so much better. So like I went to Brew Hall last night, and I just like sat at the bar and had my iPad out and was like chatting with various people as I have my iPad. But I think it's, people don't like that, right? Like they don't like the added dimension of things. They just want things to be simple, right? But it's like all the complexity of it, you can organize it with the technology, and that's what I try to do. Did that work perfectly? No, did it? Oh yeah, I just haven't put mullions on there yet. Okay. Okay, I'm going to try this properly this time. There we go. Done. And done. There, that's how you're supposed to do it. Okay, so we don't have window here. Copy. You know that episode where Sideshow Bob is like stepping
know who Sideshow Bob is.
stepping on the rakes, and he's like, that's pretty much the entire like experience of using Autodesk Revit. It's just one constant like, dude,
stepping on rakes,
dude. Okay, so you kind of have this tapering up from about here to about here. So this needs to be very much altered.
Well, the model's deck perimeter was kind of more of a license issue for me. I didn't really.
I would prefer.
I wanted to finish the model, so I kind of hurried that aspect of things.
I would much prefer just going around the deck as such.
Yeah, if you're in this digital plane, it's easy to make lots of interesting corners and junctions.
Well, that's just it. I mean, like, that's essentially the important part that I'm trying to pursue to the max. Is that, like, you could draw it, and you're not limited in the same way as when you draw it, but, like, you apply the same discipline to using this, and then you'll learn how to achieve all of the freedom within this application, and it's way, way more efficient, and I enjoy it much more. I enjoy using the computer much, much more. And it constantly, like, changes what it's saying, right? Where, like, Revit will tell me that, like, this railing has to be one connected thing, but then, like, now it's like, no, it doesn't. It's letting me do it not connected. So it changes itself. It's just like, it's the AI, basically. But when you catch Revit thinking for itself, it's kind of interesting. There you go. So, like, that should have been that way before. You can see how that was a clear glitch in the application. Because I had it drawn like that, and then I had to redraw it in order to get the railing to show up. So it just, like, automatically deleted. I didn't touch it. I didn't delete it. So there you go. Hey, we made some progress. The model's a little bit closer. So these two garage doors have to be one, right? So I think I have to edit this family to make this family double wide, which I can do, but it's kind of frustrating. So we have that railing going up there, leading to that floor. Oh, no, we need to kind of, I think, extend. So we're changing this. We're taking this in.
Interesting thought just occurred to me.
Well, this is the way you have it modeled. I mean, I think this would work even better, to be quite honest. Just because...
Now, the railing you have in the back is... I would comment on it if you allow. One has to consider privacy aspects of this. If you have a clear glass railing going right along the back, one of the points of this is to give privacy on the back side, so that the neighbors on the other side of that alleyway, some of them which are in higher elevation to yourself, well, the owner and me, the designer, wanted to provide some kind of a visual element of privacy to that rear end. Hence this, on the model I show kind of a solid wall rather than a clear railing. And that's the reason for that.
Okay, so you want privacy toward that end.
So that if you pull in with your car and you're kind of just finding a parking spot there, you can't really see what's going on the deck. That's intentional, it's not an accident, but I don't think I expressed it very well in that model. That's just what the original intent was. In fact, one of the owner's priorities in this structure is privacy. Privacy through the use of green and trees, privacy through the use of strategic views, privacy through the use of visual blocks, either front or back from the street view or the alley view. And that's kind of, it's not a criticism, it's just that's what this can very much evolve into as we go along here. I think the basic structure is definitely taking form, and I'm just highlighting.
Should I throw a post underneath here? It's pretty big cantilever. I don't think that's the code. Like a post underneath right here. I'm gonna throw an architecture, a column, structural column. It's vertical. It automatically went to slanted column. Load timber column. There's Revit. Whew.
You can take this to Mr. Bosa and say, look what I can do.
Yeah, but I can already do that. I already have models.
Or your snobby landscape architect friend. Although you don't need him.
Do you want to sit down and look at the model? I think it's some pink lemon need. Oh, dude, this beer is so good. The enduring trail beer. So, load family, timber column. Some or all of the families that you have selected cannot be loaded. You must choose families for the category of structural columns. Do you want to retry loading a new set of files? Yes. Structural wood column, round wood column, rectangular column, rectangular column, Canada, structural framing, structural columns, concrete, precast, wood, glue lamp, composite, parallel, timber column, okay, thank God. Okay, so we're putting a structural column, which should be wider, right there, just to support this.
Base offset is negative.
1, 2, apply. Oh, you bastard. Okay.
Did you, did I not send you the topographical data? Now that the house has come along so far, do you think it not wise to set it into the correct topology?
What is this level right here?
It might give you an understanding as to some of the choices. Now that it's come thus far.
Just fix this.
Actually, when I was building the model, I built the topology independent of the structure at first. I had a vision of the structure, and it progressed independently until that point where I had to marry the two together. Would have been a point cloud or something of the sort. Worked at least in AutoCAD 3D maps.
Okay, what now? Sorry. What now?
Topology.
Topology. Topographical.
How does Revit deal with topology? I have no
typically
idea.
in site views, so you go elevations, ceiling plans, floor plans, structural plans, elevations, level, families. No, don't want to see these families.
Like, what do you do to define topology? You have one here, but it's not real. How do we make it go from that to the data-driven topology?
With regard to topographical,
Yeah, like I have data points from the survey. How do we import them and impose them on?
they should be part of the CAD file that you imported.
Right.
But sometimes Revit will have to delete that in order to get the import properly, right? Or modify precast, collaborate.
So do you have a space or a directory where you've stored those things outside? And we can attempt to import.
Do I have a directory where I've stored? I can import.
Yeah, I would have attached it to a mail somewhere. I prefer not to resend it if you already have it. Alright, change to a more relaxing.
This is what we call Homer Simpson.
Yeah. Everybody's stupid but you.
Yes, everybody's stupid but me. It's Sunday. It's Sunday too.
It is Sunday too. Lord, don't strike down the Shalimar, please.
I need a cigar.
Luke knoweth not what he does.
Dude.
He speaketh what he does not know.
Insert. Do you manage site? Manage site. Add and collaborate massing and site. That's what we want. Topo surface. Okay, now we can make adjustments to the topo surface. So I have to place points at elevations. So as we look at the topo surface, we have to where are the points that are in place?
Well, I mean, we do the point set that I would have sent. I assume it can derive from that somehow, and you can set the z-axis anywhere you want with respect to the house, and of course the corner anchor point to set it inside of the topology.
Okay. So you sent me an email.
Yeah, let's look at all them attachments.
This.
Everything from Edwin. I've sent you a number of mails with various attachments along the way. One of them would have had more topographical focused files. Oh look, XYZ point import and contour. So they're likely there somewhere. I tried to save them in generic DWGs. They could be sitting in that laser cut topo. Not, yeah. Or, oh, you have it marked as PDF? Why does it say PDF when it's a DWG?
Right. That's Windows. Laser cut topo.
Well, we can look at both and see what's there. What's important is the data set. They're going to be in there somewhere. Either as an export or as a copy and paste.
Okay. So. Massing and site, ability pad, subregion. Insert DWF link CAD. This one or this one?
I would say I don't really know which one. I'd have to remind myself. Try isolated survey points first.
This guy too. Excellent. Try laser cut. Try isolated. Sorry, what were we saying?
Isolated survey. It may not give you anything that's immediately visual.
Detected no valid elements in the file's model space. Do you want to import from the paper space?
Yes.
Linked file could not be located. It will be displayed as it was when this project was last saved.
Whatever that means.
Sheets. Revit links. Missions, schedules, sheets, groups.
Well, it's good form. The homework part of your work is figuring out how Revit imports topographical data. I'm sure there's a dozen
I took
YouTubes on it.
I took a course on it.
No, you did.
But it's different when you're drawing the topo yourself in AutoCAD or something, and you're importing stuff that you're familiar with. Ooh. So,
What is the point cloud thing?
point cloud where?
On the up, right by insert. Link point cloud, and it's looking for an RCP. I don't think I have an RCP, but we just need to get the data out of those files. It's there, but we gotta somehow scoop it out.
Okay. View DWG. DWG trusted by over 1.3 million. Review can help you work smarter and faster.
Like, can Revit open plain Jane DWG? Like 2D, you know.
You can import it.
You can import it. Okay.
Here, let's watch a video on that.
Like, it might be that we can import the DWG first and then take data from that that's in a Revit interpretation and then form it over to your Vantage Point file.
What's going on, guys? Welcome, Architect here, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be sharing these 5 tips and tricks for importing DWG or AutoCAD files into Revit so you can transform your AutoCAD project, your 2D plans into a 3D model in Revit. I'm going to be sharing with you how to set up the file in CAD before you get into Revit so you don't have any trouble with the file before you start working with it. After that, I'm going to be talking about the correct way to import and how to do all of the setups, then how to position it and lock it in place. And after that, we're going to be covering all of the visibility graphic settings as well as how to set up the whole view so you can see your floor plan from AutoCAD in the right way, and then how to use this plan effectively to model your Revit model. Okay, so that's what we're going to be covering, but before I get started, I would just like to ask you to like this tutorial. It helps me out a lot, and if you haven't already, I suggest you subscribe because I make tutorials like this every day. And all of these files will be uploaded to my Patreon, first link in the description. And I've been taking a bit of a break, so I've been a bit less regular this week. I've been a bit sick, so I apologize about that. Okay, let's get started. So as you can see over here, I'm in AutoCAD. And here I've just got this simple floor plan, and this is what I'm going to be using to demonstrate all of the things. So as you can see, we've got 2 of these floor plans. This is kind of the lower level, and this is the first level. Now, if I load this into Revit, this will all be placed on a single level. So if I go, this will be all on level 1, for example, but this should be on level 1, and this should be on level 2. So how do you separate these? Well, you actually need to create 2 new files. So what I like to do is I like to just select one floor plan, go Control-C just for copy, then start a new tab over here, just a new drawing, go Control-V, and just place it over here. And do the same thing for the other one. So just select it, go Control-C, and then go over here, Control-V, and place it over here. Now, in this case, as you can see, let's go back to the first plan. As you can see, it looks like this. So, according to the stair and according to like the 2 floor plans, we can see that this corner and this corner of the house or of these 2 floor plans are aligned. So, to make it easier for you in Revit, let's go for drawing 1, and here we can select this coordinate system, select the center of the coordinate system, and we can move it to this place over here. Do the same thing on drawing 2, so just select it here, move it to the corner. So when we load this into Revit, and when we place these at different floor plans, they will be exactly above each other at the correct place. So that's something you want to have. Another thing I like to do in AutoCAD, now you can do this in Revit, but I just prefer to do it in AutoCAD, just to clean up the drawing of anything that you don't need. So for example, these annotations over here for the rooms, I can delete those.
I guess I could download AutoCAD and install it.
I can just select it and delete it over here. And then check for all of the layers. So
well, I want to know what he's going to do after this.
So
the important bit is what he does after all this preamble.
So now it's time to load
What's he going to do, export it?
AutoCAD or into Revit. So let's just save
export to DWG.
Save, and let's go to desktop. Let's call
save
it.
as.
Save as
DWG.
import to
One. Go save and go to.
Okay, well I already provided DWG.
Again,
so
save. Drawing 2, and there we go.
if it's
now
just
we
a
can
simple
go
import,
into Revit, and let's talk about importing properly.
then we
So
should just be able to do that real quick. Like,
and once we're here, Now it's time to load these files. So we've got level 1, and that's where our drawing 1 will be going,
Okay,
and then
back
we've
in
got level
Revit.
2, and that's where our drawing 2 should be going. So just go to level 1, and now for importing, just go here to Insert, and you have Import CAD and Link CAD. So the difference between these two, if you go to Import CAD, it will just load in the CAD file, and it's just there forever. If you go with Link CAD, it's actually going to remember the link on your computer. So if you make some additional changes to that CAD file, it will automatically update in Revit.
We're not gonna. We don't need to link.
Close Revit and then
We're not changing it.
open it up or reload the link in Revit. But be careful, if you delete that CAD file and it's linked, it
So
will just
import
disappear,
CAD is
so
the
that's
button.
something you don't want to have. So for that, I'm just going to go here
Import
to Import CAD,
GBXML.
and let's just go to
XML
desktop, and
could
let's go
contain
to drawing.
topo
Number 1,
data
that's the one
as
I want
well,
to use. Now for
let's
all
try
of the
DWG
settings,
first.
you want to make sure that all of these settings are right. So for the colors, you can either preserve them, invert them. For some reason, I
So should I
just
try it?
never do this, and you have black
Well,
and
pause
white.
this guy and
I'm
yeah,
just going
let's
to choose black.
press back. So
Import
what did we have? Import CAD was one of his options.
link CAD.
Link CAD would be more if you were making changes in what you were linked to and you wanted those reflected. We're
Import
not going to change the top.
import CAD.
Yeah. Try that.
Import
No
detected
valid
valid elements of the file's model space.
Try the other one. It's either a problem with my source or our method of import. Some elements lost, okay. Well, maybe it doesn't matter. Oh, okay.
Howdy. I was just talking to Elizabeth Edwin, and she agrees with me that all we need on the front is the cover over the door. The rest is just, I mean, you know, whatever. And she's going over town to see how much it will be for, what do you call it, for engineers and all that. And I said maybe you guys could design something. What are you falling asleep?
Yes. Okay. Well, we got it. We got it.
You got it. You know what I mean, Reed? So anyway, the other thing is, dig this, you know, hat on Ford. I just bumped into her. She's hysterical. She's got this new business to look after elderly people. And she said, do you want to be a caregiver, Gail? I said, no, I do it at school all day. Sorry?
The Mexican lady? Okay.
So then she said, she took me into the bike room and she said, I left a bike right here and it's gone now.
Oh.
She bought a bike at the Sally Ann and just put it in the door and left it there. She didn't move it over, you know. So I said, well, where is it? I mean, surely if you buy a bike, you know what it looks like. She can't remember what it looks like. So that's her problem. I said, is it a boy's bike or a girl's bike? Go look.
Are you going to start a new career taking care of old people?
God, no, I'm old myself. I mean...
So that's a no.
No, no. I said maybe when I retire I could do some little thing, but I'm not doing anything now. Holy crap.
You got your.
I have to go down and do something for Holly. Oh, Edwin, do you know how to put on windshield wipers?
No, because they're different for
Okay,
every
that's
major
fine.
make. Yeah.
I don't know what you have on your gas tank, but I have a turn gas top. Yours probably pops open like mine.
Yeah, I have a flap and it pops open and then
Yeah. Oh, and then a screw top?
a tension screw top type
Okay, well,
cap.
take a look in that basket I have down there. There's a metal one from somebody dropped on the floor ages ago, so if it fits your car, you might have a spare.
Okay,
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's in the basket on a corner somewhere.
sure.
Okay. So I just want to put some things in the fridge, and then away I go.
You don't let us force you out. I mean,
No, of course not. You're not. No, I just. tell you to go F yourself. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just going down to Ollie's to do her dishes, and then I'll be back.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll probably be gone by the time you're back.
Don't worry, I don't care.
Luke is
Is he
using
passing
his
up?
expert Revit skills to import topology. So
Cool.
Create.
I love the way he does it lying down.
it's just full Homer style, you know.
Well, the two of you,
If you could get robots to do all your physical motions for you, you could just stay right there. Just pump fluids, you know, to
This
keep
is
your
on
brain
its-
going.
the two of you could design a whole new.
Now, then, what's important here is are the lines
Generate topo from DWG.
does that object already have data in it, or is it just a flat 2D representation? I don't know that answer yet.
Yeah, I know that's the difficult
You know
question.
what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay, good.
This does it have?
Because
With
when you look at
elevations is
yeah,
what you're
when you look
asking.
at it as a plane,
Yeah.
is there?
I think there's a chance that Revit decimates that.
Yeah, it might kill it.
Yeah.
Or I'm not doing the right file.
Don't wanna lose you now. It's time for a banana. A banana. A banana. Have a banana every day. Do you have a banana every day? You want a banana?
No, thank you.
I don't remember what we bought. There's big money in caregiving though, because everybody's getting old at the same time. My generation, there'll be so many of us, they'll have to kill us off. They'll have to give us the needle. Although the coronavirus might do that, eh?
Well, there's also the Soylent Green option.
Silent what?
The Soylent Green.
The silent green.
Soylent Green.
Oh.
It's a movie about turning people into food.
Oh, really?
All the useless old people and stuff.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Tell that to Luke. Can you rent it on Netflix or
Oh,
something?
that's a classic Charlton Heston
I
1970s
haven't seen
sci-fi.
it. Oh, it's Charlton Heston?
Yeah,
Can't stand the guy. He's the one for guns in the United States years ago.
I think he might be dead now, but I don't know.
I guess I can't talk poorly of the dead, but when it comes to him, it gives me a pain in the peenie. Even dead.
Everyone has their hobbies.
I'm so bad. I'm so bad. Okay, I got these new windshield wipers yesterday because I go to Lorco because I get a discount through work. And I'm going to have the kids at school put it on for me because we have an auto department. It's wunderbar.
Das ist wunderbar. Sprechen Sie Deutsch, ja?
How do you say it? I say wunderbar.
It's wunderbar.
Wunderbar. Do you speak German? Sprechen die Deutsch?
Ein bisschen Deutsch.
A little bit.
Ich lerne gerade Deutsch für 6 Monate.
Whatever the hell that means.
I've been learning for 6 months now.
Oh, you have? Oh, yes, you are practicing. Good for you. Are you going to go to Germany, or have you got any rallies over there?
Yes to both questions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What have you got? Have you met them, or?
I know them. It's been
Yeah.
many moons since I met them. I was just a boy.
You were just a boy. Okay.
In fact, I'm corresponding with them right now.
Good. Do they probably speak English, right?
Well, thankfully, one of them is semi-fluent in English. Helps
Well,
me
the German
translate.
students we get at school are also marvelous. They all speak English beautifully. We get a lot of German students. Most of them don't want to go back. It's probably because it's so much easier school here that they say, like, heck, what do I need that for? Germany, let me out of here. Too much discipline, not enough.
Are you saying
freedom.
Our standards are low?
Yes, they are, actually. Give me that. Yeah, really, I mean, that's the impression I get. They have it much harder than we do, as far as school goes, definitely. What a slob this kid is. Slob Ola. So they come here, they must have some shekels because it's not cheap to bring a foreign student over for 6 months or so. So,
well, the euro is valued around twice as much as Canadian.
oh, well, that's true.
So their money is doubled.
That aspect. What the heck is that?
Which helps to offset some of the Asian bubble.
Yeah. We don't, we aren't getting Asian students, of course. But we got them in the beginning of January before this whole thing started. So, gotta wash your hands constantly. Well, I deal with kids, you know, with runny noses, you name it. So, changing diapers, that kind of lovely stuff. So I don't do any academics anymore, which I don't
Yeah,
do
that's much better. Sorry.
because it's useless. You're with our special needs kids.
So, is there any elevation information contained within this DWG?
Let's find the secrets. Why is it a big vertical cube? Is it because it senses data in there?
It must have 3D information in there. So,
So is there some way to view data, or
that's what I want to explore.
let's-
Generate, Revit generate topo, topography
for
from
import?
DWG import.
When you receive information from a civil engineer, it will always be in either DGN or DWG format. There's no Revit civil package, so these folks are always going to be working in either AutoCAD or MicroStation. Revit does, however, have some simple topography tools which are going to allow us to build a terrain model based on that CAD data that we bring in. So let's look at the process. Once again, I'm in a blank empty file just created from the default template for the purposes of this exercise. I have provided a civil engineering file that actually is shipped with and installed with the default AutoCAD installation. So this file actually comes from Autodesk and is in the sample files with AutoCAD, and I'm just using it here as an example to show you how we can bring that file in and make topography from it. So I'm going to go to the Insert tab, click on the link CAD, and I've got this AutoCAD site plan file right here that I've copied over from the AutoCAD application. It was in the sample file, shipped with AutoCAD. And the most important setting that we want to do differently here from the import floor plan movie is we want to make sure that we do not choose current view only when we're bringing in site plan data. This is critical because when we uncheck this box, we're basically telling Revit to treat this imported CAD data as three-dimensional geometry. If we don't use it as three-dimensional geometry, then the topography cannot be generated from it. So we want to make sure that that box is unchecked. The rest of the settings are less important, but we'll just run through them anyway. I'm going to go ahead and invert the colors. I'm going to bring in all the layers, auto-detect the units. Now here, probably a pretty good idea to go ahead and try the origin-to-origin option and see what happens. But 9 times out of 10, what's going to happen is site plan data, civil engineers are notorious for, they've drawn the contours here that you can see, and the origin is 300 miles away at some state benchmark marker. So Revit doesn't have an easy time reconciling such large distances, especially when they're miles away. They have expanded this in 2011 to a 20-mile radius. It used to be limited at 2 miles, which was more limiting. So 20 miles is better, but still,
I mean, I don't
sometimes
need
it
the car or
runs into
anything, but I
problems.
want to.
So there's a pretty good chance we're going to see some sort of an error about this. Let me go ahead and click OK. and the error looks something like that. So it's telling me that the object was a large distance from the origin, and so they chose center to center for me anyway, even though I asked for origin to origin. This is not the end of the world because Revit has a feature called shared coordinates, which we are going to look at in a future movie. And shared coordinates allows us to reconcile the differences between two different coordinate systems. So at first you might be concerned about that and say, well, you know, that was not very good. It was to arbitrarily move my file. But it's pretty easy for us to reconcile it back and get it coordinated. So for now, we're not going to concern ourselves too much with that warning. One last thing I want to say about the warning is when you get a warning down here in the bottom corner, that's what Revit likes to refer to as a warning that you can ignore. Or believe it or not, if you looked it up in the help file, it's actually called an ignorable warning. Okay? This means that I can just simply click anywhere on screen and the warning will go away, and it doesn't require immediate attention. Okay,
Remember,
so
guys,
some
no
warnings will not be ignorable.
Yeah,
You'll
no
have
heat.
to click some sort of button in the dialog
Not that
box,
it matters to me,
and
I'm not
usually
sure.
it's a distasteful button like cancel or delete stuff, and we'll see those maybe later. Anyhow, I'm looking at this file, and the next thing that I want to do is I want to kind of assess the file. I want to figure out what I've got here. So I'm going to go to an elevation view first and just kind of show you that the engineer who built this file actually created a series of contour lines set at their explicit three-dimensional heights. So each of those contour lines is set at a certain z height, and that's going to be critical to our success in creating a topo surface from this. If everything's flat,
We need
we're
Z.
not going to get a topo surface. We're just going to get a flat plane. So we need this sort of three-dimensional characteristic. The next thing we need is we need to know which layers in the CAD file are actually contours so that Revit doesn't try to create contours from these plot lines or from these roads or other things in here which would just distort the surface and
We
cause
only
a lot
have
of problems.
contour in the
We're
file,
only
so
interested in
we
the
don't need
actual
to worry
lines
about
that
other
are really
elements.
contour lines. So if I kind of look in this area right here, that's probably a pretty good place for me to do this query. So I'm going to zoom in right here. And what I want to know is what layer this bluish color line is and what layer this darker purple line is. And I can do that by
That's
simply
one thing that
selecting the
computers
CAD
do a
file.
heck of a
The whole
better
thing will
job in
highlight.
is contouring.
And then over here on the ribbon, I have a query button. And when I click on that, it allows
Very
me
difficult to do as a
select
human.
the lines inside the CAD file, and it will tell me the names of those layers. So this one is called CFDP index, and this other one over here is called CFDP INT, which I assume is intermediate. And so we're going to take those two layers and we're going to generate topography from just those two layers. So we're going to go to massing and site for that. Click on the topo surface button, and we have a few options here. Place point is the default option. In order to use place point, you would literally have to specify the elevation and literally click point by point by point, every single point you wanted to create the surface from. Very tedious process if you were doing a site of this magnitude. Not recommended. Instead, we're going to use the button next to it, where it's going to allow us to create from the imported CAD file. I'm going to select the import instance, and when I do, it will give me a list of all the layers
Good,
in that
because
CAD
I
file.
know the layer the points are on.
Okay.
Alright, that might be
I'm
enough.
going to click
for us.
check none.
Excellent.
So
What was that? What was that button? Duh.
By point, every single point you wanted to create, called CFDP INT,
I
which I
already
assume
forgot
is
what he said.
intermediate. And so we're going to take those two layers and we're going to generate topography from just those
Yes,
two
yes.
layers.
You don't want to do each point, but
So we're going to go to
Do the
massing and
import.
site for that. Click on the topo surface button,
topo
and we have a
surface,
few options
create
here.
from import. Click the topo surface button, wherever the heck that is.
Where?
I'm not sure what menu that's in. Hit the topo surface button. I don't know if it's the same versioning you have. That, yes. And then create from import. There you go.
yeah, I should have known that.
Okay. Alright, perfect. Okay, just hold here for a moment. It's either a def points or it's an MS points. Probably MS points. Down. It might be an MS point. not the rest of them. So invert.
Or deaths.
I would try MS Point first, but there may be in another layer. Okay, well,
That's just there's only 4 points, so that's not good.
no. Now, did we import it properly? Because remember they said don't checkbox the check thing. Maybe we need to do another import. Just delete this guy and let's import again to make sure.
What's wrong with it?
Remember when he mentioned when you're importing it, not to check the preview only part, because that's bad. We want to make sure everything in that file gets
So
imported.
delete it and import it
just
again?
delete it and import it again. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just make sure that.
Okay, so sorry, I should have gotten that. Files, analysis, insert, import CAD.
Yeah.
What was that loop cut? This one, topo.
No, you've already skipped past it.
Okay.
Did you make sure that the box wasn't preview only?
Okay, so import
Just,
CAD.
yeah, slow down, slow down. Okay. Current view only, we want to make sure is unchecked, which by default it is. Okay, fine. I think we're done then. So let's try working with laser cut topo. Or actually, no, I'd rather work with isolated survey points because that's where the data is, I'm pretty sure. Laser cut topo would have been a derivation for my plotting of it on my machine. So isolated survey points. Oh, this one doesn't import. Sorry. I wonder why it doesn't import. I may have to give you more file. Another file that does work. No valid elements. Because it's just data.
It doesn't work.